Welcome to Secular Soapbox. I'm your host, Stacy, and tonight I'm joined with my co host, David McDonald, and our guest is Gary Parker. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and feel free to share the show. Let's start tonight's episode.
Hey, we're back.
We're back. Welcome, everyone. Great to see you, David, and welcome to our guest, Gary Parker. So nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
I'm actually very excited for this conversation, Gary, because I know very little about you, and I'm wanting to know everything about you because I've heard that you recently deconstructed your faith. When I say recently, it's been a couple of years now, is it?
Yeah, it's been a few years. I would say it first started about 5 years ago. I had a few questions that had bothered me. And so the more I started digging into those and asking some questions, I kind of went down the rabbit hole. It started with my personal cracks, I would say, or inconsistencies that I saw in my the things that I've been taught growing up. And once a few of those questions got started, and I started researching them, like I said, I went down the rabbit hole. So,
what was your faith background? Like, what kind of church were you a part of?
I grew up Southern Baptist.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and we were in church every time the doors were open.
That's what I always say.
Yeah, mom was in the choir. Dad was a deacon.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a core. A lot of times there's a dozen core families, or 20 core families in a congregation.
Mm-hmm.
We were one of those core families. So we were at every event. All the vacations were church vacations.
Right.
So, but yeah, grew up Southern Baptist and young earth creationist, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's what started one of my cracks years ago. So in my day-to-day life, I do granite countertops.
Okay.
And so I put in kitchens and that kind of stuff, but I've been polishing rocks for 30 years. And my sister was doing her house, and this was probably 15 years ago. And I was walking her around the showroom looking at granite, and I showed her this huge slab of fossil stone, and it's got hundreds of fossils in it. And we buy it by the slab and use it for countertops, but you can see all these fossils in it. And I was telling her, yeah, these little fossils, got stuck in like some tar pits or something, millions of years ago. And over time and heat and compression and those kinds of things, it's solidified, kind of like the petrified tree. When you were growing up, they'd show you a rock and say, this used to be a tree. Now it's a rock because of the minerals and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, these guys swam into the tar pits millions of years ago. And my sister looked at me and said, millions? Really? And I said, yeah, millions. Like, what's the problem with that?
Right.
So, and I didn't really take time to dig into it at all until probably 10 years had passed. And then the next thing that kind of stood out as odd to me was I kept hearing religious people say, well, specifically religious people, more so than others, say, got to stand with Israel. Got to stand with Israel.
Okay. Yeah. That was something that was really big in all the churches that I grew up in too.
Right.
Yeah.
And it stood out as odd to me because you tend not to hear that about other countries, got to stand with Guatemala.
That's true.
you just don't hear that, And so I really got curious about why is that the case? And once I started digging into it, I realized that's just completely a religious thing. That's the main motivation behind that. Well, then the next question was, well, I mean, we're the most powerful country, on earth. It's the way we're characterized most of the time. What happens if we run the table? What happens if, we're the big dogs, on the block and we run the show and all of the goals are met? What is the end goal? Right. And that's when I realized, well, wait a minute. The end goal is, essentially the for the Jewish people, they're coming Messiah, Armageddon into the world, that kind of stuff. And I said, whoa, that really slammed the brakes on. And so, wait a minute, I don't want that. I want my grandkids to have grandkids. And so, so I specifically don't want what you want.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, it was, I'm sure Hitchens videos and Sam Harris and Dawkins. And I spent thousands of hours. I would find some debate at Oxford or Vanderbilt or somewhere, and it may be a 3-hour-long debate, and I would watch an hour of it in the morning and then go to my job, and I'd watch a couple hours in the evening, and then I'd find another one, and it just became a preoccupation. Just
I think we know what that's like.
I can relate so much to your story.
Yeah.
But I love how you said that these cracks started to form. For me, I describe it the same as I started noticing these cracks, and I actually mentally took off my God helmet, and I was like, I need to examine the evidence without any biases. I'm not going to assume any. I'm going to try and assume as little as possible, and then I'll put my God helmet back on. I'm still a Christian, but I can't presuppose my answer and then go in looking at the evidence. I need to look at it, without as much bias as possible. So I did that, and these cracks started to form. And what was really hard for me, and maybe you had a similar experience, is these cracks got so big that eventually they were giant canyons. And I'm like in these canyons going, whoa, how did I not see this huge crack? And then I would come to my fellow Christians, pastors, worship leaders, and friends, and I would ask them, hey, like, have you noticed these cracks? And not only did they not want to talk about it, which I found is problematic, but I found that a lot of them were actively dishonest about the discussion. So they were like already like they were already on their back feet. They weren't willing to investigate things honestly. And that was actually really heartbreaking, because I was like, whoa, like is this religion that I believed in, like, are all these people just like brainwashed? Like, are they like, is it, like,
the more you try to have the conversation and the answers seem defensive, then you start noticing those defenses go up. Or if you're told you shouldn't be asking the question, or any of that kind of stuff, if they're not willing to, that's a good question, let's get into that. Or if their answer doesn't make sense, it only reinforces your questioning, and it sends you further down, your research path. They haven't jerked you back onto the straight and narrow as they would like to think, but instead they've catapulted you further, into finding answers. So it can be challenging at times. What were your first cracks, Stacey?
Oh my gosh, so many. I didn't know you were going to ask me questions. I was not
figured if we're getting to know each other.
Yeah. No, that's fair. It was, well, we were saying how we both kind of deconverted around the same time. And I started having questions around 2021 where I really started digging in. And so about 3 years ago, that's 3 years ago already. And it was around the pandemic. And it was, I started really questioning just the way Christians were handling it. And so that's what made me kind of dig in even deeper, because I was seeing how dishonest they were being about actual facts and evidence in black and white. And I thought, if they're being so dishonest when they can see the truth about certain things that's right in front of them, what other things are they completely ignoring and being ignorant about that they just don't want to acknowledge? And so I thought, are they being the same way about their faith and what they believe? And am I guilty of that too? And so that's sort of what made me really examine what I believed. And I also was like, do I want to be a part of this group if one, they're acting really crazy? And so I started digging in to see if what I believed was true. And hey, what do you know?
Yeah. It's interesting how everybody's paths are so different.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
it's almost the same as believers. You ask certain, ask 10 different believers, when they accepted salvation or anything else, and you'll have 10 different stories of
Oh, yeah.
things that happened in their life, and we're no different, really. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just times in our life that we started questioning things, and then
Yeah.
as we looked for the answers, what we found.
The
So
only difference I find, though, is when people accept Jesus, it can be like, "Hey, did you know that there's this person that you've never laid eyes on and you never knew about him until I just told you about him right now, who died, and you're supposed to believe this, and if you believe it, you're gonna have eternal life," and you're like, "Oh, really? Okay, yeah, sure, I believe that, and I'll say this prayer, and, oh, I'm saved now, I get to go to heaven. Yeah, you're saved, cool," and that's the end, and, "Okay, I gotta just go to church, okay," and you're saved, and no one, like, examines, how much you believe or, like, your motivations for believing and why, and no one questions you, but then as soon as you deconvert or you start questioning, it's like, "Well, were you ever really a Christian? Like, how saved were you?"
Yeah,
Like, no one
that's
gives you
so
a
true.
runaround of, like, why you were sa and it doesn't matter how many years you were in it, but as you can say you're
Yeah,
saved in, like believe in, like, 2 minutes
oh yeah,
and
yeah.
have this, like,
It's
holy conversion.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's so
and
easy and so hard.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
it's so easy when you're going into it, and when you're trying to prove that you were in it, it's so hard. It's
yeah.
impossible.
It's like,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't get this, like, interrogation when you become a Christian, but the second you leave, it's like, well, then you were never saved. It's
right. Becoming a Christian is almost a celebration,
Mhm.
for those, um, it's usually an event, a baptism, everybody's
Yeah,
so thrilled for you and all that kind of stuff. Becoming an atheist at first
yeah,
can be lonely,
right.
Oh,
especially if you're in a
Mhm.
community of faith and you're the one, like you were talking a minute ago about, when you started questioning those things, it tends to become very isolating
Mhm.
and very lonely. And then you have to go and intentionally seek out community and develop essentially a whole new network, you
Yeah,
know.
mm.
So
yeah.
So, so if you guys deconstructed at the same time, I think I'm a bit of an elder here. I deconstructed a couple years before that.
oh, nice.
Oh.
No, but, no, but did you guys go through? I know for me, I went through the what I call the angry edgelord atheist time, where I was trying to be provocative with my religious friends or family by just
Mhm.
dropping little things in there to try and spark debate or conversation. Have you guys gone through that, the edgelord angry atheist days, or are you
Yeah,
still in it?
I have, and I didn't necessarily take the tactic of dropping little hints. Instead, I, I s- I went to the people that I knew were believers and said, "Hey, I want to have a conversation with you." And they said, "Okay." And I said, "Look, the easiest way for me to say this is, there's no God. There's no." And they're like, "What?"
Oh.
And I'm like, "Yeah. So get this. You're not going to believe this, but," and I would start walking through some of the things that I had learned.
Mm,
Um, that so my two toughest conversations were with my wife first,
okay.
and then my sister. And it was really my fault on both of those because of uh, my speech and my demeanor in the conversations, how I went into them, and then when they brought up either not really challenges, but just questions. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? I would just come in hard, and I would say, "Yes, I have," and now I'm on a
You'd
rant.
have you'd have your comeback.
Oh yeah, and
Mhm.
Mm.
so my wife, the first time I talked to her, she got teary eyed.
Mm.
She ended the conversation fairly quickly. I gave her some space and then circled back around sometime later, and I said, "Hey, are you okay?" Because you know that conversation didn't feel very good. And she said,
Mm.
"Well, I felt very attacked," you know. And I
Mm.
said, I had to say, "Hey, look, first of all, we never have to have this conversation again. I love you much more than any of these any of these questions.
Yeah.
I was simply trying to open a window and let you know what was going on with me, in case you noticed I was preoccupied or felt differently about, various aspects of life, or, if everybody said, let's bow our heads in prayer, and you kind of noticed my, expression, or
Yeah.
a rolled eye or something like that, that you would know what was going on with me. I'm just
Yeah.
opening a window, but we never have to talk about it again. And I never want you to feel attacked whatsoever at
Mhm.
all. And so she said, all right, well, I appreciate that. I mean, what's making you question? What's making you? And then I was able to take a chance and explain rather than attack.
Right.
Mm.
And the conversation with my wife was not a devout believer, but
Oh, okay.
a believer. It's not like she was, on fire for the Lord or anything. And here I come at the thing that's most precious to her.
Mhm.
That wasn't the case. That was not the case with my sister.
Mm.
My sister has, she would tell you that she has a very close, very personal relationship with Jesus. She journals every day. And
Mhm.
so on her bookcase is book after book after book after book of journals where she has
Oh,
daily written for years.
wow.
She's been involved in church startups. She's had, the church business office located in her house. She's, small groups at her house every week for years. I mean,
Mhm.
just very, very solid Christian, as we would say.
Yeah.
So when I had my conversation with her, I didn't just start out with, "Hey, there's no God." I told her that I was having some questions regarding faith, and she said, "Okay."
Right.
And as I presented those to her, she was obviously had a lot more answers, a lot more things to say in return,
Right.
and then I started swatting them down, and
How did she take that? Was she
not well.
No.
She also got teary eyed,
Mm.
uh, exited the conversation fairly quickly,
Mhm.
and we typically speak. She's in Knoxville. I'm in Nashville. We typically talk on the phone once or twice a week,
Okay.
and we didn't speak for a couple of months, which
Oh,
was
Mm.
wow.
just highly unusual. So I had to circle back around and say, "Hey, what's up?" And same thing. I felt very attacked, and I said, "Wow, okay." So same thing. I love you. I
Mhm.
appreciate you. I value you. We don't ever have to talk about this again.
Yeah.
And that's the way it stayed for a year.
Oh, wow.
And then I got involved in some other activities here in Nashville. And in that process, I wanted her opinion on um, a discussion that I was going to be having regarding faith.
Mhm.
So I called her and said, "Hey, I want to get your opinion on something. I know that we don't regularly discuss these issues, and I can appreciate that. In this conversation, I only want your opinion. I'm not interested in giving any of my opinion in return. And so this is just a chance for you to provide information to me, your perspective. That's it. It's a one way." And she
Mhm.
said, "Okay." So I asked her the question. She spoke for 10, 15 minutes. And when she got done, I said, "Okay." And she ended up circling back around about 2 days later and said, "Hey, I gave you my opinion the other day.
Mhm.
Now I'm curious. I'm curious about yours on that topic." And I
Right.
said, "Okay." So I gave her my opinion on that topic. And since then, we've been able to have some real conversations.
Mm.
And, we haven't, I'm not going to change her mind.
Mhm.
She's not going to change mine. But
Yeah.
at least there's an open dialogue there.
That's
And,
good.
we can have that. And
Yeah.
so, but that was a path going from, like you said, angry atheist to, hey man, these are people that I care about, and
Mhm.
Mm.
I've got to find some way of remaining literally a family, or in some other cases, a friendship. And while we have differing views, so
Well, I actually really appreciate that story because that is I might be at odds with a lot of the atheist community for some of my actions, but like, you know, a friend, you know, my friend and some of our friends had a sick daughter in hospital, and we sent them flowers, and I wrote, I knew they were really passionate, really strong Christians, so I wrote a Bible scripture on there that I knew would comfort them. I don't believe in that Bible scripture. I know they do, but like I was like, you know, and I know they know I'm an atheist. So I was just like, look, I'm meeting you where you're at. Like I'm like, this is, you believe this. If it was they believe in the Hindu god, I might quote the Bhagavad Gita or something. But and another thing that like really helped me is, you know, one night, I think this is before it was, everyone kind of had suspicions that we weren't Christian, my wife and I, and we're drunk. I was very drunk. I think it was a family gathering. I was very drunk. It was to celebrate that the announcement of my wife being pregnant after years of IVF. And I went to the bathroom drunk, and I wrote this speech to like thank everyone. And in this speech, I actually quoted the Bible. And it was the same scripture. I thought this was pretty interesting. It's the same scripture that Christopher Hitchens read at his father's funeral, which is Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think of these such things. And I framed it in a way, and I said, look, we all believe different things. We have different paths in life, but the best thing about us is we can come together and we can discuss our differences and we can respect each other's opinions. And then I actually ended on that. And I think doing that was like meeting them, because it's very confronting for Christians, you know, to have someone like just walk away. But it's like meeting them where they're at and going, okay, well, you know, like I know that you believe these things. I know that this scripture that I'm reading, for me, it's just some cool words. But for you, it means something spiritually. So, you know, we'll share this common ground. I view it differently than you. You view it differently than me. But I think there's something to that. Because I think, because since then, we've been able to have good conversations, like you're saying with your sister, where you both bring your perspective. You're not kind of challenging each other so much. Well, you are challenging, but you're not clashing heads so much. You're kind of accepting each other's spot where each other are. If that makes sense.
Okay, so you didn't receive any backlash for either of those situations, right?
Oh, well, prior to that, we had family members crying and splurting off about how the devil's, you know, is using science as a big fiery tower to shoot, you know, fire arrows at the Christians, and how like the world is like, we've had all of that, and all the crying and the anger and the and all that stuff. But,
in your family, in response to your deconstruction?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All
but
right.
it wasn't necessarily when we didn't tell them we were deconstructed. It's just the things that we were looking at the time were so challenging that it became too confrontational for some of our family, and they got really, a lot of them, you know, people have cried, and it was brutal. But then I think when we finally came out and said, you know, we don't believe in God or Satan, or when they asked us, we go, no, I don't believe. They go, it was confrontational, but then as a result of like knowing where we're at, it was a lot easier for them to deal with, and then we could have those. And then by also then not being confrontational to them, but kind of meeting them where they're at, it opened the door for important conversations. But I don't know if all atheists do that. I don't know if atheists would send a Bible scripture at the end of a reference at the end of a.
That's a good question. You know, we should make that a poll.
Who would do that? Yeah, actually, that should be a poll.
That's actually not a bad idea.
It would probably.
I think I would stand at odds with a lot of Christians, but because I don't necessarily think Christianity is a good thing, but for these people, they believe it is. So I'm kind of like, guys, remember this. Remember, you know, you're going through a hard time right now. Remember, you know, this thing makes you happy. So remember about that good thing that makes you happy. So, but, you know.
I don't know if I could pull it off.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, good for you. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very thoughtful of you.
It felt weird.
Yeah.
It did feel weird, but I was just like,
I
it's not about me.
totally understand the sentiment behind it and the reason you did it. I think that's very thoughtful of you. I couldn't do it. I would have to, just because I just couldn't do it.
It's the same. Like I have Muslim friends, and I'll go like happy Ramadan or whatever you're doing. Like,
that's
true.
Yeah.
Pray, pray 5 days times a day, like enjoy it, do whatever you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. No, that's true.
I
But
don't believe it's true. Like I've read the
no.
whole Quran. I think it's all silly, but like, hey,
Yeah.
go for it, man. Like,
Yeah.
um,
I was thinking though of like I feel like the reason people get so like triggered and offended when you say like you're no longer a Christian and how it would make them teary and stuff is, like you're told as a Christian like your identity is in Christ, right? So when
mm,
you tell them you're no longer and they take it personal, it's not like you're just saying like your belief is something I don't believe in anymore. You're basically saying there's something about you. They might feel like you're saying there's something about you I no longer like or
mm,
identify with and agree with. And I totally, as a Christian, that's how I would have felt because I know when my husband and I would have discussions about certain faith things, because he wasn't real, like he wasn't a believer, but he really went along with it. So if he ever brought things up,
I love
you're already
Brian.
laughing. I know my husband's great. Um, if he started to kind of like question certain things, not in a way to like make me doubt my faith, but just be like, hey, like this doesn't actually make very much sense. I would get really offended and I would just like shut the conversation down
Mm,
immediately because I was just like, I would just say, you just got to have faith. Okay. Like just stop asking these questions. Like, who cares? We can find out when we're in heaven. Just stop it. Because
yeah,
if I didn't have the answer and I didn't know, I would get really agitated and I would take it like a personal attack. And he's like, no, no, no. I'm like, I'm just wondering.
mm.
And so to come out and say like, hey,
Well,
I don't believe in this anymore, that would have, yeah, I would have gotten upset too. But
I think they've done scientific studies on the brain in the same area that when someone prays, the same area lights up when someone thinks about self. So when someone says you
ah,
reject God, it's internalized the same as someone rejecting your identity. That's why God tends to vote the way you want to vote. God tends to like think the
because
same things as
God
you.
is
Yeah.
created in your image.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned meeting them where they're at.
Mm.
So I was listening recently to, I think it was a sit down between Dave Rubin and one of the Weinstein brothers.
Okay.
Oh,
Um,
Harvey?
no.
Dave Rubin, can you remind me who Dave Rubin? Is he
think
a conservative? Or am I
I
thinking of someone
think
else?
think he is. I'm pretty sure
Okay,
he is a conservative.
I'm Googling him. I
Oh,
think I
this
know who
dude.
you're
Yeah, I
talking
know
of.
this dude.
I
Yeah,
feel like Dave Rubin.
He's like if Ben Shapiro was
He's
a white
really good looking.
supremacist, right?
he is. He is. Um,
Okay. Yeah,
so
I think I know
he
who you're
is
talking
a.
about. Yeah. He's a liberal political commentator, but he's sorry. Okay,
I
go
think
on.
he's
Just
like,
tell your story.
yeah. Anyway, keep going.
So anyway, so I saw a conversation between him and
Mhm.
I think it was Brett Weinstein,
Okay.
and Weinstein was essentially saying that atheism had um, made some errors or shot itself in the foot, so to speak. And the reason that they did was because of the kind of the angry atheist kind of mentality. And if we could essentially, if the religious could understand that not all the parts of their book are literal, even though there may be literal places there that are
Right.
mentioned, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean the stories are true. And that if we could come to a place where we could find some value in parts of the stories, then that would almost be kind of a middle ground. And that kind
Mhm.
of struck a chord with me. And I thought, I can find value in different works of literature. Even Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
A guy loves his girl so much that he'd rather be dead if he can't be with her.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Okay, that's a fantastic love
That's
story.
sweet.
Now,
Hmm.
and I can pull some value out of that, but I don't think it's literal. If
Hmm.
you say, yeah, if we could get to the part where we could look at the Bible and say, look, there's some value in there, but that doesn't mean it's literal. then okay, I can meet them there. Recently, I've had conversations about that with some of my Christian friends, and they're like, "Yeah, believers aren't going to go for that. It has to be true. We can't just say it's a nice book and get some good meaning out of there." So, but I recently found myself coming from that angry atheist phase and wanting to tell somebody and wanting to, rescue somebody from being fooled by things and swept up in different religions and all. I wanted to get the word out that there had somebody had been hoodwinked, and it was us.
Right.
I wanted to get that message out, and I found myself more recently really appreciating the conversations and the interactions, and just wanting to find some sort of a middle ground that we could all agree on and value, and so they might not go for the important but not literal thing, but some of them are still open for great conversation and for challenging each other, and so.
Did you ever have spiritual-esque experiences or anything? Because I take a similar approach to. I grew up Pentecostal and spoke in tongues and all that stuff.
Oh,
So
Southern Baptist, I don't know.
I look at those and go, I don't believe like they were what I believe. I had those experiences. I just don't attach a truth claim to, like, therefore Jesus is true and I was really speaking another language, and I just kind of go, I don't know. Like, how do you
so we didn't have necessarily miracles or speaking in tongues or anything like that would kind of stretch your perceptions, and we didn't necessarily have those. Now, I will say though, I went through, as everybody's gone through, really tough times in their life, and there were times that I never had a supernatural experience, so to speak. I never saw lights or was overcome and spoke to their language, nothing like that.
That's
But I
too bad.
right. But I did have deeply intense emotional experience in which I felt like I was crying out to a creator and asking for guidance, asking for help, asking for just some soothing in the moment.
Yeah.
And I did feel something in that moment, in several of those moments. Now looking back, I realized I was having an emotional experience, and there was no visuals or anything like that as far as supernatural goes. But I did have some very intense emotional experiences, and felt like I was leaning on the Lord during those moments. I can't say that I have felt that intensity. So
well, yeah, I mean, like, people have those same experiences at like rock concerts and different things. My wife actually said that she used to have the exact same feeling she'd have at church in worship, she'd have at a musical, sometimes more intense. She loves musicals. So
yes, I mean,
same.
Music can have an extreme effect on the mind and your mood and how you feel that day. Once you realize that, you're less apt to be swept up in an emotional experience like that, unless it's one that you're willing to go on, like at a musical or in those times you're almost searching for those. That's the reason why you attend, is because you want to experience that thing. But it's different when you're looking for truth, and you're specifically searching for truth claims and researching them. It's you're not as apt to have those. So
no, exactly. And you're attaching supernatural to those experiences.
And the more supernatural things that become attached to it, whether it's speaking in tongues or handling snakes or being just filled with the Spirit, and so you're dancing everywhere, or any of those type things, like, wait a minute, things are starting to look a little silly. So
I think the whole snake handling thing is an American thing.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't think it's in Australia, but
I don't think anywhere in Canada does the snake handling.
Yeah, but you guys have seen it, you know.
I've
yeah,
heard of it.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen. But it does
It,
not happen
it's
here.
actually funny because that scripture was actually added later. The one that you'll drink poison and pick up deadly snakes. And Bart Ehrman makes the joke that maybe on the way to the ambulance, when these guys get bitten, someone should mention, oh, by the way, that was a later addition to the Bible, I think 400 years after.
Right.
So
It's just it's amazing to me that the human mind can go along with these things. That's one of the more surprising things now is that we've not grown up out of this yet.
Yeah.
I'm only a couple of hours from Appalachia, and that's where a lot of those snake handling churches are. So I'm sure within a couple of hours, if I wanted to, I could find myself at a snake handling church.
it'd be such a cool thing to witness. I think
I don't
I'd go to I'd go to an if I
David,
was
I'd
in
go
the
with
States,
you.
yeah, I'd want to do a documentary. Like I'd want to like film it and
road trip.
Yeah, that'd be fun. We should do that. Atheists go to church.
Yeah,
come
see everybody in Nashville. Come see everybody in Nashville. We'll go find some snake handlers.
Yeah. But so speaking of Nashville, you're only like a few years out of Christianity, deconverted, and you're part of this coalition. So tell us about that.
Well, the short answer is we're a group of Christians and atheists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're a mixed group, and we regularly meet and have discussions, just one-on-one, over coffee, over dinner with drinks, anything, whenever we can coordinate it. So we regularly meet for those. Also, monthly, we have a live event for everybody, the free for the public to attend, and we choose a couple of our people and put them on stage and pick a topic. So we'll have a Christian and an atheist, and we'll put them up there and say, okay, where do you get your morality from? And so you hear the two different perspectives, and sometimes we'll lean more one way, than the other. But we intentionally look for the tough questions. What does your worldview have to say about our origins? Or what is your worldview? Where do you get your morality from? Can someone be good without God? And so we get a Christian and an atheist perspective. So we're a group that meets and has conversations live. When we have our public audience come, we have a Q&A session afterwards. So everybody can ask questions, and so it's really it's a blast to be a part of. And we get challenging questions from the audience. And like I said, we don't just do that when we're on stage and in front of people. We're just friends, and we like to hang out specifically to get into the tough questions and challenge each other and see why you know what you know and how can you back that up. And
do the Christians who attend, are they coming to sort of evangelize, or are they coming to learn, or is there a vetting process?
I wouldn't really call it a vetting process. We do want to know what your intentions are, so to speak. See what kind of personality you have. Are you interested in sitting and having conversations with someone that has an opposing worldview? If you just want to proselytize, that's not the place, for this. You can do that in other places. But if you are genuinely curious about other people's worldview, not that yours is going to be changed. I mean, maintain yours by all means.
Yeah.
But you want to engage with somebody, and do you want to be challenged? Are you up for the tough questions? Are you willing to think about them? That kind of a thing. And that question, honestly, is one that I've asked in our group meetings when it's just us and there's nobody else there. I've asked before. I'm like, look, I know why I'm a part of this group, because I want to actively challenge religious belief. That's why I'm here. And I'm sure it's the same with the other atheists in the group. We appreciate the opportunity and appreciate you sitting down with us so we can say, do you really believe that? And why? And have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What's the ramifications of this? I know why I'm here, to challenge. But my question is, if I was a believer, why would I subject myself to that kind of challenge on a regular basis? So my question to you is, why are y'all here? And so one guy said, well, I'd be lying to you if I told you that I hope that I didn't hope that one day someone's mind would be changed by these interactions.
Right.
I mean, possibly I can lead somebody to the Lord by some of these conversations. There may be somebody that gets reached because of what I'm engaging in here. I said, okay, that's fair. I mean, okay, I appreciate that. And another answer was that these questions just fascinate them and they love the diversity and hearing other worldviews. And so that's the reason why some of the Christian members are in there. I think it's clear for the atheists why they're there, because they're interested in challenging. And the Christians have some various reasons for being there. It's harder for me to understand, but I'm so thankful for the group that we have. One guy that I'll take credit, I kind of added him to the group for the believers, right?
Oh, okay.
Was a guy that his name's Aaron, and he just posted something on Meetup about a year ago and said, I'm a Christian. All my friends are Christian. I feel as though I live in an echo chamber, and I'm interested in sitting and having conversations with somebody who doesn't share my views, and honestly, to see if my arguments hold up. And which I was impressed by. Of course, I reached out and I said, I'm here for you.
Good for you.
So I will meet you wherever. And so he said, okay. So we did. We met at a cigar shop south of Nashville. Within 3 minutes, we had a good rapport, and we dove right in and challenged each other. Not, I would say aggressively, but challenged each other vehemently. Okay. And we met for 3 hours that first night, and left. Both of us were excited to have had the conversation.
Yeah.
And said, let's do this again. And then we met another dozen, maybe 15 times. We would have lunch, get some margaritas, that kind of stuff. He started calling it Margs and Args. He would just need to argue about these things. And so he would call me and say, hey, when are we getting together again for Margs and Args? And I said, okay. So we had one of the members of the Conversation Coalition drop out, one of the believers. He had some other stuff going on and was busy. So there became this spot open. And I asked him if he'd be interested. He said, yeah, absolutely. And so I talked to Elliot and Pedro and some of our other members and said, hey, this guy would be good for the believer side. He makes good points. He challenges in a direct way. He doesn't get his feelings hurt when I'm direct or blunt. We speak freely, very, very freely, and sometimes go hard at each other. And he's got thick skin. I've got some thick skin. So we really go at it. And I think other people will be interested in these conversations.
Yeah.
Are y'all interested in having him as a part of the Conversation Coalition? So everybody met and got to know him and, all that kind of stuff. So now he's in it. He's helped us with a bunch of events now. And so he and I are actually going on stage later this month, the end of this month. And so, yeah, and he and I will be just be going over what's our worldview. So it'll be he and I on stage, and for an hour and a half, we'll pick at each other's worldview. He tends to think that atheists have a lot of baggage, and if you believe in atheism, then you have to believe in this and this and this and this, And I'm like,
believe in atheism. Okay.
I know. And I'm like, look, atheism is not something I believe. Atheism is just a lack of belief in gods.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know you'd like to think that, but
my gosh. Okay.
What is it? Atheism is a religion like abstinence is a sex position.
Yeah.
I know.
There you go.
I know.
You should say
So-
that. Remember that one.
Right. But yeah, so we
That's not original to me. I don't know where they came from.
I've never heard that, but I love it.
But yeah, we have these conversations and we really enjoy it. So
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly fascinating. Please, are these recorded at all? Are these
Yes.
posted anywhere online?
Yeah, they are. And I'm sure we'll make some of them public, and I think some of them may be on our YouTube channel. We might have. I think Sydney is
Okay.
doing the YouTube channel. She handles all of our social media stuff. Sydney
Okay.
and Elliot.
Davis.
Yeah, and
Jr.
yeah, Sydney Davis Jr.
Who we love.
Oh
It
yeah,
is amazing.
she handles all of our social media, and Elliot handles some of that also. So I'm sure some of those are available on YouTube, maybe some other platforms by now. Our last event was at Lipscomb University. We
Okay.
just finished. We just got the video back on it, so I know it hasn't been posted anywhere. All of our other events have been in a local church in Nashville.
Oh.
One of our members is on staff there, and they.
Can I ask what denomination it is?
It's non-denominational.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of our members, Pedro, is on staff there, and they've been nice enough to let us use their old sanctuary, their smaller sanctuary.
Okay.
So we've been meeting there. We've had a couple of events at a coffee shop nearby. So yeah.
Wow, that's really
awesome.
cool. And do people just find you on Meetup?
Yeah, Meetup, Facebook, put a lot out on
Okay.
Facebook. We list all of our events on there. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know that a lot of people suggest Meetup for in the States. I don't know about you, David. Do you guys? You're in Australia. I'm in Canada.
I think we have Meetup. I don't know anyone
Yeah.
that usually it's like maybe tourists who use it or people
Oh,
who
okay.
have moved to a new area that I
Okay.
think, but that honestly sounds so good because one thing
Yeah.
that I was talking to someone about this the other day, but I'm actually a little bummed that Atlas won't have our son Atlas. He's just turned 1, and he won't have that like church community. You know what I mean? Where you meet a huge group of people each week, and you have this common idea. But something like that sounds really interesting. Where I guess your common idea is challenging each other's ideas and talking about deep things, and I think we need communities like that.
Yeah. Because you become friends in that. Yeah, you meet for these conversations, but because you just become close to each other, you genuinely care about each other, and so you have other conversations also. My mom is kind of sick right now, and one of the Christian members messaged me today and it was just concerned about my mom and asked me a lot of questions. And, we sat there and talked for a little while. Even though we weren't challenging each other's views, we're just friends and we just care about each other. Even though we met because of this, because of these conversations is how we met. And now we're just close and we care about each other. So, Aaron, the guy that put the thing out on Meetup and came to join us in the Conversation Coalition, we enjoy getting together and doing it so much that he said, man, we should start a podcast or something. And we should, air these conversations and let people see what we do. We tend to go a little hard at each other, but we're boys. I mean, we can handle it,
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're not remote. We're face to face. You're sitting across the table from me, so worst come to worst, this can come to blows. So, and we plan on seeing each other again. So it's not like just, say Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris meeting on stage at an event. I mean, they're on stage, but they're not a part of each other's lives, and they're not going to see each other, outside of this. We're wanting to get together. I want to see you next week. So I am trying to push, but I'm not trying to push you away. I'm generally just I want to dig into this question with you, and you may not. You probably won't convince me, and I probably won't convince you. But the exploration of these things is still fun, and they've given me things that I've had to go back and think, well, why do I believe that? How do we know that? You know, as they question evolution or the dating of our universe and rocks and other things, I've had to go back and say, okay, why do we believe this? Why do we think this? Why do we, what evidence do we have that the universe is billions of years old? What evidence do we have for evolution? And so it really creates just an avenue for learning as you go and find out why you believe what you believe and why you reject other things. So it's as much a personal exploration as it is someone else's worldview. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that.
It's strange to me that other people don't regularly engage outside of their community or their niche that they're in, whether it be a believer or a non-believer or whatever.
Yeah.
But that people don't regularly cross those lines and go talk to the other side, is I'm sad for them because there's a lot of good people, and depth of conversation is the real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's cool that you found people who are willing to have those conversations, especially on the other side, because not everyone there is open to conversing. So that's amazing that they are willing to talk to atheists, because I know that when I was a Christian, I didn't really know anyone and who was an atheist. And if I did, I would have thought they were worshiping the devil.
There's such a stigma around it. And believers, at least around the area where I live, it's just so commonplace that when someone hears or you tell them, yeah, I'm not a believer, I'm an atheist, you can almost see this look of shock, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're in the Bible Belt, so
it
would be rather shocking too.
Yeah. So I experienced that quite a bit. I'll tell you a good story. I was out on a job site. I do granite countertops. I was out on a job site. The contractor that I was working for, 4 or 5 times in a very short amount of time, he dropped some religious thing. Well, I'm glad the Lord gave us some rain, last week. Or and it was like 4 or 5 of them in a row. And the first couple of times I thought, I'm not going to challenge that. I don't have to. I don't have to walk into that every time.
Yeah.
So I just nodded and, brushed it off, whatever. And that after about the 5th or 6th one, I finally said, hey, so not everybody believes the same. And he said, well, I know, but, and I said, well, just so you know, I'm one of those. Okay. I don't believe those things. I'm an atheist. And he gave me that look, and we kind of he had questions, he wanted to offer proof, this and that. As he did, they were the ones that you always hear.
Look at the trees.
Yeah. You can look around.
Shroud of Turin.
God is all around you, everything. And so I batted those down pretty quickly, and you could see his temperature getting raised as I, pushed back. I actually left that conversation, and I called my wife and I said, well, the guy's name is Rick. And I said, hey, I might have lost Rick. I don't know if we'll be doing any more jobs for Rick.
No.
She said, what happened? I said, well, we got into this conversation. It got a little heated. I might have hurt his feelings. I don't know. And but a month later, he called me up, and hey, I got a job ready over here. I said, okay. So I went out there and I told him, I said, hey, I'm glad you called me for this job, because our last conversation, I wasn't so sure. And of course he reassured me. He said, no, man, it's no big deal, And well, then the next job and the next job and the next job, we would slowly engage in this more and more. And so finally he came to the last coalition event, and
oh wow.
Yep.
That's
came to the last coalition event and joined us at a kind of a meet and greet at a local brewery. He sat around in a circle with us, and we went around the circle and asked everybody, believer, and that was a mix of believers and non. And we went around the circle and asked everybody, what is a behavior that you see out of religious people that that you don't agree with, that you wish they didn't do. And one by one, we went around the circle, atheist and believer, and atheist and believer, one by, and this is a behavior from religious people that I don't like. And then we went around the circle. What is a behavior from atheists that you see sometimes that you don't like? So we went around the circle again, and everybody gave their perspectives. And afterwards, I asked him if he had a good time and this and that. And he said, man, I'm just amazed that this conversation even happens, that there's this group of people that sit around and discuss these types of things. And, I'm just floored by it. And he says, I feel like God put us together so that we could have these.
Of course. There was a caveat.
Right. Little did I know I was being used by the Lord.
He's still using you. Really quick, if you can remember, what were some of the things that they didn't like that atheists did, just out of curiosity, if you can remember any?
Yeah, well, the angry atheist obviously is also one that wants to just, let's see. What were some of the others?
If you can't remember, it's okay. I just thought if there was anything that stood out, but just because I don't want to, I'll try not to do that.
I think it was just the really vocal, really loud, disrespectful.
That can be the same said for Christians.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So basically, just be kind.
Yeah, just care about people and be nice. Honestly, if I had a video that night and we replayed it, I'm sure you would see some of the exact same answers.
Yeah.
That would go both ways. Yeah, you're exactly right. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
I actually have a question that I'm really curious to ask as we kind of getting to the end of this interview is, what advice would you give to yourself if you could talk to yourself as you were first deconstructing?
Advice to myself as I was beginning deconstructing. Don't be angry about it. Don't feel like you have to prove it to other believers. Go slow. Do some research. Learn some things. Be nice. Be nice to the people around you as you go through this. Realize that they haven't done anything to you on purpose. They're as much a victim of indoctrination as you were at one point. And so, just shed light, be nice, love people. So,
I have to ask another question.
Yeah,
sorry, Stacey. This is a question I often ask at Deep Drinks, and you might want to use it. You could use it in one of your the coalition's conversations. Is what is the most plausibly true religion?
I was thinking of this question.
That you don't believe in. So, what is the most plausibly true religion that you don't believe in?
Plausible.
You can ask that to anyone. So you can ask that to a Christian, because then they have to evaluate other religions that they don't believe in.
Yeah. That's a good one. Are you asking us that now? Oh,
he's asking you. I've already been asked this question.
Okay, all right.
It's a question I asked at the end of the I can't remember your answer, but
no, I don't want to say it. It was dumb.
Well, I can't say that I've explored a great many of them. I'm assuming I would lean towards one with the fewest miracles, the least amount of magic.
The least amount of, that's great.
Because it would just be easiest to get behind. I don't know what that would be. Judaism, I mean, except for the whole Messiah thing.
Yeah.
They don't.
It's hard, isn't it?
It is. It is. But I mean, the good thing about it is they don't. Judaism doesn't speak that much on an afterlife. It's more of this is how you should live your life. These are the rules to live by. They don't go on for links about a heaven or a hell or anything like that. So, I mean, possibly even See, Christianity just added a whole nother layer of miracles and magic.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like Mormonism is like another like level
Right.
above.
Yes.
You gotta believe in the Judaism and the Christianity and the Mormon thing. So
Right.
Mormonism's even further.
right.
Even
And
more
I'm not-
cosmic craziness.
I doubt I'm going to place very much faith in, golden plates in Missouri or,
Yeah.
any of that. So I don't know. I would guess Judaism, but even then it would be hard because,
I said the flying spaghetti monster.
Did you really? I forgot that.
I was like, I have no idea. I'm like, the
Wait.
flying spaghetti monster. I believe in that one. 'Cause
We need to, Stacey. We need to redo your episode because it was such bad audio, and I feel like we could
I
have had.
know.
We should redo your episode when you
Let's
come on.
do it.
But
I want to come back on
yeah.
your show. Okay, anyways.
Flying spaghetti monster and Judaism. Okay.
See,
think
that's
so.
why mine was a dumb.
I'll be curious about that for the next week or so. That'll cross my mind again.
Mm.
So, I may reach out and want to change my answer at some point after
Here.
learning some more.
Reform Judaism. They don't believe in the Messiah. All the perks, no obligations.
Okay,
Yeah.
see?
So you can just reform it.
Thank
right?
you, Joe. Look at
There
Joe
you go.
coming in with the answer.
There you go.
Yeah, because you can get like like traditional Buddhism that didn't really have a god, and that's kind of a religion, but they believe in reincarnation. But then or you're like Taoism, it's like a philosophy, but is it a religion? So I don't know. It's an interesting spark to a conversation. You could think about that forever.
Yeah,
You could meditate on that under the Bodhi tree until you gain enlightenment.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, as soon as they bring in the supernatural, that I start to lose faith very, very quickly.
Ooh,
So,
I like this answer. Maybe paganism. It's somewhat nature based.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Paganism.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that one.
It's actually interesting because I was reading this book on ancient magic in Greece and Rome, and it talks about like, well, everything back then was kind of magic. When you plant an acorn seed, and you give it a potion of water and sunshine, it grows into a big tree. And that tree has a spirit, which is, I forget what it's called. I don't know, but it's like everything is magic. No one knows what's going on. It's just
That's
like these
true.
things do this. That I was like, that's kind of a fun
Has
way to
a
look at things.
magical. Yeah.
Like
Right.
Shinto is a little bit like that, I think, where like there's like 11 spirits of rice and things like that. Well, that's kind of, it's fun. Like I can choose the funnest religion. Like Catholics for sure have the coolest outfits.
They do. Okay.
Yeah, you've seen those robes? The
They look
gold
heavy.
trim,
They look so
Yeah.
heavy.
the big
Okay.
gap.
I wore a wedding dress. It was so heavy. I had like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't want to wear a
Well,
robe.
Catholicism is not for the weak. I mean,
I was told yesterday on my stream that if I was going to be an atheist, I couldn't be a weakling. I was like, I didn't. Who said I'm weak? Like what? I was a Christian. I was like, go, just go.
Maybe the heavy garments in Catholicism is representative of the baggage the Catholic Church has. Oh, you heard it here first. Hey,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So my podcast partner Aaron, he believes that atheism has all this baggage that comes along with it.
Is it because we're processing all the crap we went through as Christians? Like, is that
No,
the baggage?
he just says that you're forced to believe all these other things. So you're
Like
forced to
forcing
believe.
you.
So you're forced to believe in evolution. You're forced to believe in the age of the universe. And
no.
yeah, and then he's got some problems with us having not figured out consciousness
Okay.
yet.
Has he ever watched anything on like The Line? Atheists call in, and just because you're an atheist, they get some
doesn't
really
mean you-
crazy callers
Yeah,
who don't
doesn't mean you
believe.
accept science or
Mm-mm.
yeah.
Right.
No,
I've told him,
no.
look, and I've tried to buy into the baggage a little bit, just to say, okay, fine. You say that we have all this baggage. Go ahead and tell me all the baggage that you feel like I should have at this point, and we'll see which ones I'm am good with, and I don't have any problem carrying that or not. Tell me what all I'm saddled with, So we'll be getting into that before long, and but generally it's just you got to believe in evolution and
No,
age of the
as a
earth.
Christian, you have to believe in, you have to believe in creation. You have to believe that Adam and Eve were the first humans. You have to believe in original sin. You have to believe that there was that flood that covered the entire earth. Like, those are the things you have to believe in.
Right, because if you don't, say you're a Christian,
Yeah.
while at the same time you believe in evolution, well,
Then you're not a real Christian.
that's kind of the Achilles heel. That's kind of the Achilles heel, because if that were true, then there was no Garden of Eden. There was
Yeah.
no original humans, no Adam and Eve, no original sin, no need for a savior.
So then where did Christianity come? Yeah, what was the point of Jesus coming and dying on the cross if there was no original sin, if there was no Garden of Eden, if there was no I'm sorry.
That
Shoot
really
that down right away.
that really locks you in. I mean,
it does.
While I was a believer, and I still know Christians now that say, look, there's many different types of writing in the Bible. There's poetry, there's song, there is apocalyptic imagery, like Revelation.
Yeah.
There's all these different types of literature, and the first part of Genesis, I think he says Genesis 1 through 11, is myth writing, and he still is in love with Jesus and as a follower of Jesus, but doesn't agree with the story of creation as told in Genesis 1
So
through
he thinks
11.
it's like allegory or something.
I'm not exactly sure what he means by myth writing, but it's
Okay.
The people in that time frame, in that time, to the best that they could, it's their attempt to make sense of things and make sense of where they came from and the world around them and that kind of stuff. And that's what they came up with. But it doesn't mean any of it, is actual. Now, if he believes that the first part is myth writing and the last part of the Bible is just apocalyptic imagery, I mean, where do you sprinkle
where's
in the rest of that?
Yeah.
Why is it not?
How do you know what's true?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's where it gets confusing, and that's why I'm an atheist.
Right. Well, and
I'm out.
And that's where we challenge each other and say, look, how can you hold all these things? So the other day we had a young earth creationist, what I say old earth Christian, he would say just Jesus follower, and an atheist, all sitting together at the table having a conversation and challenging each other. So it's interesting conversations and good times.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
That is very interesting. I hope that we can link to your YouTube channel or to just see some of these conversations when they're recorded and uploaded. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, look for the Conversation Coalition, and for my podcast, we're still getting a few more in the queue before we publish them. We've got about 8 or 10 so far. We're going to make it over a dozen, and then we'll say, okay, here's the first dozen. So,
oh wow!
And there's a couple of those in there where we got a little bit spicy. We almost tore ourselves apart a couple of times, and then had to regroup and come back to the table next week and say, okay, let's muddle through this and let's have the rest of our conversations. We can do this. So, it's been a bit of an experience just sitting for those conversations and challenging each other, good or bad. So,
perfect.
Oh, awesome! We'll be uploading a video of Conversation Coalition this week.
Yay! Thank you, SR.
Yeah. That's awesome. A good one. That's probably going to be a really good one too. That's probably going to be our Lipscomb event. So that'll be awesome.
Cool.
Perfect.
Yeah. They did a great job. They did a really good job with that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Gary.
Anytime.
And it's great to meet you and chat with you. And
you too.
It's absolutely wonderful to get to know you, and we just want to also thank our patrons before we go. So this show is supported by people like you. If you want to help support shows like this, visit the Patreon. But thank you, Eric Ozols, Ryan, Deneen Murphy, Dan D, Michael Wiseman, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, Phil Calderone, Amanda McLeod, and Logan Fisher.
Yes. And also don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven. Tuesday nights, of course, you're here for Secular Soapbox. Thursdays, we have the Sunny Spot. Saturday is the Global Atheists and also Women Atheists Unload. And then Sunday nights, we have Let's Talk, which is our call-in show. So, yeah, thank you again, everyone. Thanks to everyone participating in the chat. We love when you comment and interact. So thank you for everyone for being here. And we will see you next week.
Yay!